Okay, so now we are moving on to phase two of our thumbnail sketches. This is the revision and refinement stage. When you turn in your final thumbnail sketches after you've revised and refined, I will be looking for the following things. First, story. Can the viewer clearly tell what is going on by looking at your storyboard? I.e., can we read the story visually? Then I'll be looking at composition. Does each frame have the correct camera shot, angle, or point of view to visually engage the viewer in the story and scene to make it interesting? Right? We need a variety of shots and angles and points of views so that the viewer gets drawn in so tension is built. So that brings us to mood and tone. Does the choice of camera shots, angles, point of view, body language, and facial expression indicate a specific mood or tone for the frame slash scene? So we should be able to read the mood of the overall story and also the feelings and mood of each individual frame as we go through. And finally, style. Is there a more refined, specific style of drawing and overall look for your character's environments? Now is the time to really figure out your facial expressions, your body language, what the environment will look like, what the characters will specifically look like. Will the eyes be over exaggerated? Would they be more realistic? So, as you're revising and you're refining your work, you should be paying attention to the feedback you've received, but you should also be using your own analytical skills to ask yourself, can we clearly read the story? Does each frame have the correct camera shots? Are they interesting compositions that engage the viewer in that story? Am I building up tension? Is there a clear feeling of joy? Whatever the mood or tone of your work is it coming through? And are we starting to see the overall style of the work evolve and become more refined? So let's look at the changes I made from phase one to phase two of my work. So here were my first initial sketches. You can see there's a big development here. And the reason why we want to really revise and refine these first sketches is that when we go to redraw them, it's not quite so much work. So first of all, in frame one, we can see a big change in the way I've drawn the character. We see more of her face. We can read more of her feelings. She looks worried, apprehensive. Here she looked more nondescript. I've gone in and refined her body so it has a better sense of dimension. I've placed her a little bit higher on the bed. In the room, I've added the shading. The sun's coming in. Here's the shadow, the light on the wall with the shadow of the blinds. I corrected the angle of the blinds here, so looking at technical things. And I've added a rising sun and some detail in the window, and that tells us the time of day. So now we have a character, it's early morning, the sun is rising, and already she's up, kind of hugging herself on the bed, looking out the window, feeling very apprehensive or worried about the day. Then we zoom in, she's gone to the window, the sun is a little higher in the sky, and she's looking out, but we can't quite tell what she's looking at yet. We zoom in further, and we see through the blinds that the city is bustling with a crowd, and there's something round in the center of the crowd. We see that hot sun. We get the sense that this might be a very hot, abnormal day, right? And then we zoom in and we see her face, and she looks very worried. Her eyes are wide. She's frowning. She is looking directly at what's coming down the street with worry and fear. Okay? And you can see here the changes I've made. I've added the sun. I've refined the body and the hands. I've added in some shading. There wasn't a lot to do here. But then here I really started to think about, okay, adding that sun, what is the shading going to be like on the city? Mapping out your shading is a good idea. And then I figured, oh, I need to add an indication of the queen in here, right? Because she's on this thing. So I put it here. And I really emphasized this pull on the windows, almost like she's kind of yanked it a little or moved it out of the way. It's swinging, so we get the sense of movement in the piece. And I'm really thinking about how lines direct our attention with the lines of the sidewalk. I put in the sidewalks here. Okay, really bringing our focus here. emphasizing what's going on here. You can see here I've adjusted her nose, I've adjusted her mouth, her eyes, and so I'm really refining this kind of animated style that I'm going for. I've refined the line work of her hair, shaded behind her. The room would be dark behind her as the sun is blasting on her face. And then we cut to what she sees further in the distance, zooming in on what's going on. And you can see here I have a totally different perspective on the queen. We're a little bit high up looking down, but not so much to build our sense of power, but more to give us a wide shot here. So I kept the angle kind of the same. I really refined the crowd, adding more and more people, shaded a little bit behind. But the big change was I figured out what her little carrying case, her little throne that the crowd is carrying her in would look like. And then I refined her silhouette. Here I put her face. Here I wanted her to be more dangerous and sinister, and we don't quite know what we're getting yet. And so I made her this kind of dark silhouette. And then we zoom in, and you can see I really refined the look of the queen. I changed her headdress because I thought this was a bit silly. It looked cool in my photo, but not so much when I went to draw it. So I gave her this pointy crown and a hairdo. I kept these kind of pearls coming down in the shape of her dress, but then I really went in and kind of refined and revised how I wanted the style of her face to be drawn, making her eyes a little bit more pointy and looking in evil, same with her nose, and really cleaning up her face. So you can see that I pretty much had my compositions figured out, but I really need to refine the look of my piece. You can see I shaded in these silhouettes behind her as well. So really refining the look of the characters, the looks of the environments, figuring out lighting was a big thing for me. And everyone's going to have different adjustments. You might be more focused on figuring out compositions and the look of your characters. You might have the look of your characters down, but some of your camera angles are a little flat or boring or too repetitive. So really think about, do I have a variety of different angles to tell the story? Do I have enough facial reaction and emotion in my story? Do I have interesting ways of framing the camera, like how I use the window here, getting closer and closer? Right? And so mine is really all about kind of zooming in. We start wide, we go medium, we go closer in on what's going on outside, we go extreme close on her face, then we have a medium shot but closer in on here, and then much more close on her face again. So the camera's constantly kind of moving inward. So really think about what your camera's doing, what shots you're showing us, and how that tells the story. And also, how do your characters look? How does the lighting look? What's the mood? What's the expression? What's the feeling? I hope this helps, and I'm really excited to see your work.